All right, guys, what I have to say today is a little controversial. You might not agree with me, but it's a really good question, and so I want to give you my straight up honest answer. So the question comes from Jamie, and I got to meet Jamie through my 5-day email course, which I launched about a week ago, and so far over 100 of you have signed up, which is awesome. And over those 5 days, I share the most impactful lessons that I've learned, both good and bad, as an aviator, so you can learn from the good stuff and avoid my mistakes. And so Jamie responded to one of my emails, and by the way, at the end of this video, I'll tell you how to sign up for that. I really think you'll find a lot of value out of it, so stick around for that. But Jamie asked me this. He said, hey, can you speak to at what point in aviation you felt comfortable flying with your partner or your child? Now, this is a timely question. My wife and I are actually expecting our first child in June, which is really, really weird to say. Ready or not, he's coming though. And so, thinking about flying with your wife and your kid or your loved one or your best friend or something, at what point do you feel comfortable doing it? And so this is a great question, one that gets asked a lot. And my take on this is that, a lot of people are coming at this from a safety perspective. So at what point am I ready? Am I prepared that I can, put someone else's life kind of on the line, which, not to sound overly dramatic, but I think a lot of people they won't say that, but that's really where they're coming from. Do I have a tiny chance of accidentally hurting someone that I care deeply about, right? And so if you're asking that question and you're coming from it from that perspective of at what point am I no longer a risk to hurting this person, then I think you're going about it the wrong way. Because I think if you are not taking someone flying because you're just trying to keep them safe, and in a terrible scenario you accidentally hurt them, but you think, well, if I'm just flying by myself, then at least I would just hurt myself, then I'm going to say something a little radical here. I don't think you should be flying solo. And not all of you might agree with me on that. But think about it. I think if you are saying that you don't want to take, your girlfriend or your best friend flying or something because you don't, in a crazy scenario, don't want to hurt them, I think you're devaluing your own life, because think how much you would hurt them if they lost you, right? If you were flying solo and something happened and they lost you, I think if you're worried about that, I don't think you're ready to be a pilot and be flying solo, and that's totally fine. But go get more time with an instructor, build that confidence level. Now, what I will say is that if you are thinking, I feel confident, I feel safe, I feel fine flying by myself, but just the added pressure or distraction or just the weight of carrying someone else, particularly someone that I care about, with me is just a distraction, then that's another thing. I think that's totally normal, and so I want to speak to that and give some advice in my own experience as to how we can kind of get rid of some of those jitters, not from a safety perspective, not saying, oh man, I hope I don't hurt this person in a crazy, unfortunate scenario, but more just like, gosh, okay, I've got someone on board. It's just going to maybe change my, procedures or my thought process, or it's just a distraction, right? So how do we fight that? Well, I think there's a couple things I would recommend. And the first is that anytime you're going to be taking a passenger up, particularly a loved one, I would highly encourage you to remember that while you might be ready to fly with them, they might not be ready to fly with you. And I've encountered this. When I got my license, I was really surprised by the number of people that didn't want to fly with me. And still to this day, I've been flying for 16 years, right? And I've learned that it has nothing to do with me. Like, I've got a really great reputation among my friends and family of being a really safe, conservative pilot. I try really hard to keep everyone just super at ease anytime they're flying with me. And even still, like my mother-in-law, Marty, if you're watching this, doesn't want to fly with me yet, just because the concept of being in a small airplane, that's not her thing. And so I've kind of had to learn, hey, I don't have to force my love of aviation on someone else. So the reason that pertains to this conversation is because if you're trying to take someone flying that doesn't even want to be there, I promise that's going to be a distraction for you. And it's one that just, you can avoid and stuff. And so just, realize that not everyone wants to fly with you. My first passenger was actually my dad. And it was right after my check ride. I literally landed, got my certificate, and then my dad was waiting at the airport because he's a pilot, and we went up and flew. And that was an awesome memory. That's one of the best landings I've ever made. Got lucky on that one. And so it was a cool moment. But ever since then, not everybody wants to fly with me. So that's the first thing. Just, not everyone's going to want to fly with you, and so pick who you're wanting to fly with in the first place. The second piece of advice I have is when you go fly with someone, don't do anything new. Don't go try new maneuvers. Don't show off to them. You might be able to go somewhere new, but don't try new things. That is just not the time or the place to do that. And it's going to cause you to be distracted. It's going to, you're not really sure how they're going to react. Like, don't go do negative G pushovers if you've never done those before with people. It's just not the time to do it. It's going to be an unnecessary distraction for sure. The third tip, and this goes in line with not doing anything new, is to brief your passengers, your loved ones, on what's going to happen. Now, obviously you need to brief them from a safety perspective, but what I like to do is really just tell them let me back up. What I'll do is I'll put them in the airplane, let them get in, and then before I even get in my seat, I brief them, and then I also brief them on what, the taxi is going to be like, what we're going to do on takeoff, when do I need them quiet, when can we talk, that kind of thing. So before I even get in, I'm not having to be in pilot mode yet. I'm just telling them what to expect. And that also helps me know what to expect. And remember that this is just a normal, ordinary flight. We're not going to be doing something differently. And we're not going to be, there's just not this added pressure. It's just a normal flight. So I love briefing people when they're all strapped in before I get in the airplane. Helps them be calm, helps me be calm. And we're all on the same page about what's about to happen. So definitely spend some time to give your passengers a really, really great briefing. The fourth piece of advice was given to me by my first flight instructor. And he said, Charlie, one day when you've got a girlfriend, you want to take her flying, don't ever scare her in the airplane, because she will never fly with you ever again. And I really took that to heart. There's all these horror stories of people scaring their friends or something, or trying to look macho and showing off. And that's just not the time to do it. Don't ever scare someone, because they're not going to want to fly with you. It's an unnecessary distraction. You just don't need to do it. The fifth piece of advice is to remember that you are the pilot, not the stewardess. Sometimes if you're, bringing someone aboard, it can kind of feel like open house, honestly. Like when we were, back in school and your parents are coming and you want to show them your desk and show them where you keep your pencils and stuff. And, that's the part of the playground we like to go to, that kind of thing. You can want to show and tell. And that can be a distraction in the air. And so, if you're busy, like, don't ever be afraid to, if you have a functionality on your comm stack that you can isolate you as a pilot. So if your passengers are wanting to chat or whatever, and they won't be quiet, you just isolate yourself, right? Like, you don't have to be the entertainer. You don't have to be the host or the stewardess the whole flight. Your primary goal and responsibility is to be the pilot first. So don't let that be a distraction. Have the freedom to say, hey, I'm pilot in command here. If I need you to be quiet, you need to be quiet. And if not, I can mute you. And just don't let a distraction happen. Ultimately, you're still in control of the safety of the flight. If you feel that bringing someone aboard with you is going to add distraction for you as a pilot, where it impacts the safety of the flight, then I would definitely spend some more time flying solo, just to build more confidence level with the procedures, with the muscle memory. And that way, when you do bring someone along with you, it's not really a distraction. It's just a fun addition, right? It adds to the joy of the flight that you get to share that with them. And again, if you are nervous to bring someone along with you because you're scared in the tiniest bit about hurting them, then I would definitely be flying more with an instructor. Build up that confidence level where it's not a safety thing. It's just kind of a confidence thing in the procedures and your focus level. So that's how I would approach the subject. So like I mentioned in the beginning of the email, Jamie reached out to me because he is on my 5-day email series that you can access by going to airplaneacademy.com/join/JOIN, and it'll start you off, and I share with you the most impactful lessons that I've had in 16 years as an aviator, the good ones, the bad ones, airplane ownership, training advice, all that stuff. And so I get pretty honest and frank about what I've done well and what I've screwed up along the way, and I really hope that you can learn from it. You can respond to those emails, and I'd love to get to know you and learn how I can help you. So go to airplaneacademy.com/join and be able to talk to you like Jamie was, and I look forward to getting to know you there. So thanks for watching. See you guys next week.